ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुराः सुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So now we are in the 6th chapter where Lord Krishna is talking about Dhyanam. And we saw in the last session itself that Dhyanam can mean Saguna Ishvara Upasana in the form of contemplating upon my Ishtadevata with the japa, or it can even mean Nididhyasana, which means I'm trying to assimilate or digest whatever knowledge I have got from the Guru and the Shastra. And the knowledge got from the Guru and Shastras is nothing but the Atma Jnanam. Now, for both these, for the Upasana, Saguna Ishvara Upasana, which we call as Upasana, or for Nididhyasana, for both of them, one needs to have the main preparation of being a Karma Yogi. It's only a Karma Yogi who has had enough of Chitta Shuddhi, enough of dilution of Raga Dveshas, can go to Jnana Yoga, listen to the words of the Shastra through a Guru by Shravanam for a consistent period of time, and then go on ruminating over it, go on thinking about it, and making this knowledge absolutely doubt free by going back again and again to the Guru and Shastra, by asking relevant questions, which was called as Pariprashna, Pariprashnena Sevaya Tadvidhi Pranipatena in the 4th chapter. So with that, whatever knowledge has been got has to be assimilated. This knowledge, which at present is something which is acquired by me, but that knowledge has not yet become a spontaneous, transformative knowledge. And for this, I need to do a process of stirring, which I told you in the last session. And let's take another example of eating itself. See, when we eat all kinds of food, gross food, but then that food which we have eaten cannot be absorbed in the same form. A process of churning and digestion has to go on in the samana vayu of the stomach, the vayu, or the samana prana has to do its job of churning, and then the ultimate subtle nutrients are available for absorption, which are going to every cell of the body. Similarly, whatever knowledge has been acquired by us by Shravanam and Mananam has to be properly processed before it becomes spontaneous and before it becomes a knowledge which is available to me all the time spontaneously. Just like the knowledge about my own address or my phone number is all the time spontaneously available to me. I don't have to make any effort to remember them. Similarly, this Atmajnanam, what is this Atmajnanam? Aham Brahma Asmi. And I'm Akarta, Abhokta, Atma Aham Asmi. This knowledge is something which has to become very, very spontaneous. And this process of churning this knowledge and processing this knowledge to make it spontaneously available to me is called as Nididhyasanam. And Lord Krishna is dealing in the sixth chapter with the Nididhyasanam. Saguna Ishvara Jnana, Saguna Ishvara Upasana or Upasana Yoga, what we call, has not been dealt with here. Krishna is going to talk more in detail about Saguna Ishvara Upasana from the 7th chapter onwards. 7th chapter, 9th chapter, 10th, 11th, 12th. They're all going to deal more with Saguna Ishvara Upasana. But here, what I can do as a Jnana Yogi, I have to first become a Dhyana Yogi. And therefore, Krishna said in the last two verses that it is absolutely important for a person who wants to go into dhyana yoga mode for the sake of nididhyasana, one has to be initially a karma yogi, and karma yoga is the main sadhanam called as the bahiranga sadhanam or the important sadhanam for dhyana. And in the first two verses, Lord said that a karma yogi is equal to a sannyasi. Why did he say that? Number one, he called in the second verse actually, Sa sannyasi cha yogi cha, he said in the first verse. Who is it? He's a sannyasi also, he's a yogi also. What is the meaning of a sannyasi? The one who has given up is a sannyasi. Now, how many things can we give up? How many things can we renounce? Whatever we renounce, there'll be another 100 things which we'll have to do. So ultimately, what we have to renounce is the Kartrutvam itself, which Krishna has been talking about right from the 3rd chapter. That renouncing that idea or that mistaken notion that I am the Karta, Jiva, I am the Karta, Ahankara, that is something which has to be given up. And here the Karma Yogi has made an effort towards it. What has a Karma Yogi done? He has given up the Karma Phala Apeksha. That means with the attitude of Karma Yoga, he has absolutely no entanglement with either the karma or the karma yoga as I am doing the karma or this is my karma or the result that comes out of this karma belongs to me, it is mine. That kind of an entanglement with the karma phalam is given up. Karma phala tyaga is also a tyaga, no less than sannyasa. So he says, such a person, a karma yogi, is a sannyasi. Sa sannyasi cha yogi cha, he said in the first verse. I'm not reading them again because we have already seen it last time. So he says that he is not only a sannyasi, but he is also a yogi. What is the meaning of yogi? We have to understand here that yogi means the one who has his mind equanimous, the equanimity of the mind which has the prasadam adhigachati. We saw that in the 2nd chapter. The one whose mind is not constantly running after things, not constantly running after the objects. So a mind which is tranquil, which is equanimous, which is poised and capable of involving itself without getting distracted into whatever one is doing. That kind of a mind is called as the mind of a yogi. A person who has such a mind is called as a yogi. So a karma yogi is also a sannyasi. A karma yogi is also a yogi. Why? Because of the dilution of the ragadveshas and because of the very giving up of entanglement with karma phala, the karma yogi is no less than a sannyasi. And the karma yogi, because of his attitude of prasadam, prasada means what? That the mind which is equanimous, tranquil, because of this, he can be equated to even a yogi. Therefore, Krishna praises a karma yogi in the first two verses. And in the second verse, what did he say? Yam sannyasam iti prahuhu, yogam tam vidhi pandava. Whatever is called as sannyasa, may you know that karma yoga also is a type of sannyasa. Okay, here what is given up is the entanglement with the very karma and karma phala. Because the whole day we are doing something or the other, we are transacting with the jagat, and all the time, if I'm having the feeling that I am doing the karma, it is my karma, idam me syat, let it be, for this may happen to me. All the time when I have that sankalpa of getting something out of the karma that I'm doing, my mind can never be in that composure that is required for dhyanam. So in the second verse, Krishna said that he is a sannyasi also, yogi also, because, hey Pandava, Arjuna, may you understand that that which is called sannyasa is also yoga, because na hi asanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kaschana. Nobody can have the equanimity of the mind or be capable of having a focus on whatever one is doing without giving up this sankalpa. What is the meaning of sankalpa? Sankalpa does not mean planning. See, for our daily living also, we need to plan. What Krishna is talking about is not that. What he's talking about is that I am going to do this karma for this sake. This I have to attain. This has to happen to me. I should get this. Sorry. This kind of a constant kind of a involvement in this should be, this should not be, it should happen to me, it should not happen to me, I should do this for this purpose, I should not do this for this purpose. This kind of a constant thinking, this is called as the sankalpa. And here the karma yogi, whatever may be his status in life, he may be a brahmachari, he may be a grahastha, he may be anybody, but then he does whatever karma he has to do at whatever time, in whatever way he has to do, he will do it, but not with entanglement with either the sankalpa for the karma or the entanglement with the karma phala. Therefore, he says that without giving up the entanglement with the sankalpa for karma and the desire for karma phala, nobody can become a yogi. And unless a person is a yogi with this kind of a attitude of tranquility and composure of the mind, one cannot really concentrate or get involved in anything. And what is dhyanam? Ultimately, dhyanam is something where I need to put all my attention, because it is something which I have to think of myself, the most subtle thing, an object or something which is not available for my perception, something which is not available to my sense organs, something which I have learned from the Guru and Shastra as a pramanam. And that kind of a knowledge about which I do not have any direct experience, I have to internalize this knowledge and make it my anubhava. Then what kind of a mind is needed for such a purpose of nididhyasana? See, many people ask a question, should nididhyasana be done always sitting in one position at a particular time in a day, or it can be done all the time? Yes, it has to be done all the time, but before we start doing it all the time, I have to first train myself to sit in one place and do this nididhyasana in such a way that this knowledge becomes so spontaneous and it becomes a subconscious flow of thoughts in me. Just like japa. People ask, should we do japa sitting only? Or can't we do it in all the time? Ultimately, japa should happen all the time. Every moment this japa should happen. But before it happens, I have to train my mind to sit in one place and do it. And till it becomes a spontaneous flow of thoughts in my subconscious, I have to do it as a sitting meditation. So whether it is Saguna Ishvara Upasana or Nididhyasana, initially I have to do it as a sitting meditation. Once the object of my meditation, the dhyaya, the object of my nididhyasanam, the dhyayam, whatever is called, becomes spontaneous, which in Shastra is called as Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha. What is the meaning of Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha? The same thought of the dhyayam is constantly repeating one after another to the exclusion of all other thoughts. I'm sorry. So, such a Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha, till it is the mind is capable, one has to do the sitting Nididhyasana. Now, from the third verse onwards, Krishna is going to talk about the general preparations of Nididhyasanam, and before sitting for meditation, what are the things that one has to do, what are the preparations, and what is the method of this Nididhyasanam that is going to be talked about. Now, in the third verse, Krishna uses two words. One is called as Arurukshuhu, another word is called Arudhaha. Now, we have to understand these two words very carefully. It's only in this chapter, in this context, Lord Krishna has used these two words. What is the meaning of Arurukshuhu? The one who's interested in mounting on something is called as an Arurukshuhu. Like a person who wants to mount a horse is called an Arurukshuhu. The one who has already mounted is called as Arudhaha. Okay, the one who's established in a particular seat is Arudhaha. The one who wants to mount or occupy a particular seat, mount something which is higher, something which is higher than where I am, that is called as the person who's interested in mounting. Now Krishna says that this dhyanam or nididhyasanam is a kind of a stage, or it's a kind of a seat where one wants to mount and occupy. So the one who's interested, the one who wants to mount up on the seat of Nididhyasanam is here called as Arurukshuhu. And the one who is sitting already on this seat of Nididhyasanam is called as the Arudhaha. We have used this Arudha. This word is quite familiar with us. Arurukshuhu is the word which probably we are not very familiar with. So the one who is interested in getting up on the seat of Nididhyasanam, this is an imagery, it's a figure of speech. We have to understand this. Is called as an Arurukshuhu. And the one who has managed to mount on the seat of Nididhyasana is called as Arudha. Now Krishna says, what are the two important preparations that are necessary for an Arurukshuhu and for an Arudha? What is needed for them? What is needed for an Arurukshuhu to mount the seat of Nididhyasana? And what is needed for the person who's already mounted on that seat to remain or maintain in that seat? So the third verse says, Arurukshoर्मुनेर्योगं कर्म कारणमुच्यते योगारूढ़स्य तस्यैव शमः कारणमुच्यते. Now Krishna says it is one person only. There are not two people here. Arurukshu is not different from Arudhaha. The one who is an Arurukshu becomes an Arudhaha. Therefore he says in the second line, Tasyaiva. Tasyaiva means for that person who's interested in mounting up onto the seat of Nididhyasana, to establish himself in Nididhyasana, what is needed is Karma Karana Uchyate. Karma Yoga is the sadhana for a person who's interested or who is serious about getting into the seat of Nididhyasana. But as long as Arudha is concerned, what about him? He's already there. He's already mounted on the seat of Nididhyasana. At the same time now, once he has mounted, he has to stay there. He has to be persistent there. He should not lose his balance and fall down. Therefore, what is that sadhana which is needed for an arudaha? Arudhasya shama karana uchyate. Shama means what? The mind which is capable of not getting distracted. See, that is very important. I might have done enough of karma yoga. I have exposed myself to the shastra sufficiently, done enough of shravanam mananam. I am a jnana yogi, but still the jnanam has not become vijnanam. The jnanam has not got yet converted into spontaneous, transformative knowledge. And I am interested in seriously wanting to do nididhyasana. Okay, I am there. And I have got myself into the seat of nididhyasana. Then I have to stay there, isn't it? My mind should not keep on going after things here and there. Raga dveshas, which are very normal and common, should not disturb me. Therefore, what Krishna says is just getting up into the seat of Nididhyasanam is not sufficient. One has to have the capacity of the mind, mastery over the mind, mastery over the sense organs, that the mind does not go here and there. Okay, we have got that enough of Naishchalyam with Saguna Ishvara Upasana. Even then, when we are trying to absorb the teaching of the Shastra, it is possible that my mind may wander in spite of my mind being having enough Naishchalyam, Chitta Naishchalyam by Upasana Yoga. So, to keep myself in Nididhyasana for sufficient periods of time, to maintain this Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha of Brahma Vichara, I have to have the mind which does not get distracted, and therefore this Arudaha should be very cautious that he is the master of his mind and sense organs. The mastery over the mind and sense organs, Shama Karana iti uchyate. Now, how is this person supposed to do that? How is this Arudaha? See, an Arudaha may be a Grahastha, an Arudaha may be a Brahmachari, an Arudaha may be a Vanaprasthi. He need not be a sannyasi. Then, how does he maintain this Shama? Shama Karana Muchyate. Most important thing, number one, is that this person should not unnecessarily involve himself in activities that are not necessary for him. A grahastha or a brahmachari, whatever actions are needed, whatever activity is necessary at that period of time, whenever it is needed, to whatever extent it is needed, yes. But one should not go looking after or going after doing some karma or the other. So trying to withdraw from unnecessary karma. That karma could be kaika karma. Simply going here and there, seeing what's happening, doing that, doing this, simply reading the newspaper, seeing what is going on the TV, what is going on in the mobile, all the unnecessary activities of the sense organs, unnecessary speaking when it is not necessary, unnecessary speech, trying to find somebody to whom with whom I can chat, speak. Now this kind of a pressure for unnecessary activities of the body mind sense complex, I must try to withdraw myself from. This is the only way that an arudhaha, that is the one who is now doing nididhyasana, can keep the mastery over his mind, and at the same time Karma Yoga has given him sufficient capacity not to be distracted, by the objects of the world. If you remember the 23rd verse of the last chapter, the 5th chapter, okay, Shaknoti iha yaha sodum, Shaknoti yaha iha sodum. He said, no, ragadvesham, ragadveshas. He said in that verse that all one's life one has to take care that one doesn't come under the influence of ragadveshas, because ragadveshas, unless I become a jnani, unless I am a sthita prajna, ragadveshas will have some effect on me. Okay, but the vegam, the severity of the ragadveshas, I have to be watchful all my life till I am a jnani, till I am a sthita prajna. Therefore, if I in some way give in to this force of ragadveshas, it is possible that my shama is lost, my dhyanam is lost, and as much as I have gone, I have mounted the seat of nididhyasana, I can easily slide down and fall down also. So in the fourth verse, Krishna says, Yada hinendriyartheshu na karmasvanushajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yogarudhastadochate. This person is called a yogarudha. Who is a yogarudha? The one who has mastery over his mind. Yada hi na indriyartheshu na karmasu anushajjate. He does not involve himself in unnecessary activities of the body, mind, sense complex, and sarva sankalpa sannyasi. The sense, in the sense that whatever is there in front of him, whatever is necessary, he does it. Maya idam kartavyam iti, but not out of entanglement with sankalpa. What is sankalpa? Idam syat, may idam syat iti, sankalpa is not there. Such a person is able to maintain or have mastery over the mind and have that kind of a mind which is the mind of a yogi. That means that which can stay in nididhyasana till this knowledge becomes a spontaneous, available knowledge to me. After this, now, if now we are talking about this thing that one has to be careful about the mind and sense organs, even when you come to the stage of nididhyasana, one has to manage one's mind and sense organs and be a master of them. That means, what does it mean here? Ishvara Sankalpa is there, Ishvara's grace is there, but in this process of Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, in this entire ladder of a mumukshu sadhanas, free will or self effort is also equally important. It is said that Ishvara Anugraha and self effort are two very, very important things, like the two engines of a mountain railway. You know, you need one engine to pull it in the front, that is my self effort, and you need one engine to push the train from behind, and that is Ishvara Sankalpa. And self effort and swaprayatna, that is self effort, and also at the same time Ishvara Sankalpa, both have to be there. And we know that in Vivek Chudamani and all other, Prakarana Granthas, Acharyas have said that Ishvara Anugrahat Yeva Pumsam Advaita Vasana. What does it mean? It is because of Ishvara Anugraha that you may have an interest and a serious desire for moksha. But just having an interest or a serious desire for moksha is not sufficient. Here, there should be a self effort. At every stage of a mumukshu sadhana, self effort we see. As a karma yogi, there is self effort. Offering something, offering all my activities to Ishvara, the attitude of arpanam, the attitude of prasada buddhi. What is this? This is nothing but self effort. Then Upasana Yoga, though here Upasana Yoga has not been mentioned very, very distinctly. Sitting with doing Saguna Ishvara Upasana, Ishtadevata Upasana. Here also I need the self effort, the self will, without which nothing can happen. Now, even for Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, I need self effort. And what Krishna says here is, my anugraha is there for everybody, but then you have to elevate yourself. It is your self effort with the help of my grace only can help any mumukshu to go through all the steps of sadhana. That is why in our scriptures we have, say that, there are four types of grace, that is what is said is Ishvara Anugraha. It should be there. That is, otherwise nothing is possible. Even that Advaita Vasana, or to know myself as the Advaita Akarta Atma, even I should know this also, that kind of even Vasana or a feeling will not be there. Therefore, Ishvara Anugraha should be there. Next, Shastra Anugraha should be there. What is Shastra Anugraha? Shastra has to, bless me. Otherwise, I will not be exposed to this Shastra. It is available everywhere. How many people are willing or interested in looking at it and learning from it? Shastra Anugraha is to be there. Then, merely Shastra Anugraha is not enough. By just seeing or reading the Shastra, I will not understand anything. There should be Anugraha of the Guru. Guru Anugraha should be there. Who is going to tell me how to interpret the Shastra? And I may have all the three, but if I do not have Atma Kripa or Atma Anugraha, Ishvara Anugraha or Ishvara Kripa, Shastra Kripa, Guru Kripa, Atma Kripa, if I don't have my own blessing in the form of self effort, if I'm not willing to put any effort, nothing can happen. All the other kripas or anugrahas become a waste. Therefore, in the next two verses, Krishna talks about Uddharet Atmana Atmanam. Therefore, your self effort is as important as Ishvara Anugraha, Shastra Anugraha, and Guru Anugraha. How am I going to get this? Uddharet Atmana Atmanam. We'll read this and see what is the meaning of this. See, Krishna in many of such verses in Bhagavad Gita uses Atmani, Atmana, Atmanam. And sometimes we get confused which is this Atma, what is this Atma that Lord Krishna is talking about. So, depending on the context and depending upon Bhagavan Shankaracharya's bhashyas, where he explains which Atma means what. Okay, how should we understand and decipher the meaning of the different Atmas that come in each verse? So let's see this. The next verse, the fifth verse. Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripumatmanaha. Ripuhu atmanaha atma eva. So what he says is, okay, atmana atmanam uddharet. That means you have to save yourself by yourself. I'll explain this. This is the word by word meaning. One has to save oneself from samsara. Okay. And he says, Atma eva atmanaha bandhu. I am my own bandhu. Okay. Well-wisher. Atma evaha atmanaha ripuhu. I am my own enemy. So, how I deal with my body, mind, sense complex, that body, mind, sense complex becomes either a bandhu to me or a ripu or an enemy to me. So, now let us understand this a little better. Now, I have one body, mind, sense complex with the same body, mind, sense complex with which I do all the vyavaharas of the Jagat outside, all the gross things also. Now for Karma Yoga also I need the same instrument, same body, mind, sense complex instrument. For Upasana also I need the same instrument. For Shravanam I need the same instrument. Mananam I need the same instrument. Nididhyasanam also the same body, mind, sense complex is needed, isn't it? Now, when the body, mind, sense complex is beneficial to me and supports me in my sadhana, such a body, mind, sense complex becomes my friend. Now, Atma here, Uddharet Atmana Atmanam. Atmana, by Atma. Here, this Atma, Atmana, stands for the body, mind, sense complex. May you use the same body, mind, sense complex Atmana, Atmanam, your mind again. May your mind be made prepared to lift yourself, the Jiva. Okay, Atmana, Atmanam, Uddharet. May your body, mind, sense complex, by following Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, lift itself up and make the mind and the buddhi capable of Nididhyasana. Okay, Na Atmanam Avasadayet. May you not allow this body, mind, sense complex to drown itself in karma, drown itself in the objects of the world and in the worldly, unnecessary worldly activities. Atma eva hi atmanaha bandhuhu. The same body, mind, sense complex, the same instrument happens to be your bandhu when it is in a proper condition. A properly conditioned, mastered body mind sense complex helps you in your spiritual journey of karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga, and jnanam. Whereas a body mind sense complex, the instrument which is all the time pulling you out, a mind which is all the time pulling you towards the sense, to the sense objects, the sense organs which are constantly running away, such an instrument is not going to help you. Therefore, Arjuna, may you have the free will to have mastery over your Atma. Now, this Atma is not the Akarta Bhokta Atma. This I, the Atma, does not need any control or any kind of a nigraha. What he says is, may you. So, who is it that should have now? The body, mind, sense complex has to be mastered by me, my ahankara, my buddhi, which is, the subtlest of the three, has to manage and have mastery, like the Sarathi in the example I gave you in Katopanishad. Buddhi is considered to be a Sarathi who is in control of the horses called sense organs, holding the reins called as the mind, and making the horses go wherever it is necessary. Let your buddhi be a master over the body, mind, sense complex, and let this Atma body, mind, sense complex instrument help you to go towards your goal of Jnanam. And at present, what is it? At present, your goal is what? You want to remain Arudha. So let your body, mind, sense complex instrument be conducive to your remaining in the seat of Nididhyasana. And a controlled or a mastered instrument, body, mind, sense complex, is actually conducive and it gives you the power to stay in Nididhyasana. But the other one is not a bandhu. Don't depend upon others, as bandhus for your spiritual development. You have to take charge of your own journey. You have to take charge of your own instrument. Okay, you cannot say that that I'm the driver of my car, the wheels are not aligned, each wheel is going somewhere else, and the steering wheel once in a way has its own mind. When I turn to the right, it turns to the left, and most of the time I'm not in my senses. If I am such a sarathi or a driver behind a car, what is going to happen to my journey? So he says, let the instruments of those which are going to take you, make you establish in nididhyasana, may they be conditioned. That is, let your body, mind, sense complex be mastered by you, and it is in your hands, and therefore it is your free will. You can do it, nobody else can do it for you. And how to do it, we have already seen in karma yoga. Upasana yoga, how to sit in meditation, what to do, it's going to be told. In dhyana yoga, what is to be done, that is also going to be told now by Krishna. Sixth verse is said, बन्धुरात्मानस्tas बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्tasya येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत्. The same thing is explained here. So, bandhuhu Atma anatmanasya. That means the person who is an anatma, that means the person who does not have mastery over the instruments, body, mind, sense complex, such a person who has not yena atmaiva atmana na jitaha. That means the one who has not, jitaha means won over, or the one who has not mastered over the instruments called body, mind, sense complex. Anatmanastu shatrutve. This anatma body mind sense complex instrument, a wonderful instrument which can be used for outside transactions also, at the same time for this most subtle activity also. See, Ishvara's creation, so wonderful. The same instrument I can use for everything, including my own elevation from a samsari to a mukta purusha. So anatmanastu shatrutve varteta atmaiva shatruvat. This Atma, this unmastered unconditioned body mind sense complex is as good as a shatru to a person who wants to stay in nididhyasana till this knowledge becomes spontaneous to him. Next he says, जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः. What happens to this person who has a mastery over his mind and the sense organs? Such a person is called as Jitatma. Jitatmanaha means the one who has won over the body mind sense complex. Such a person, Jitatmanaha. What happens? The one who has mastered over the karmendriya activities, at the same time jnanendriya activities, and also of the movement of the mind. For such a person, Jitatmanaha, Prashantasya. Naturally, such a person is Prashanta, isn't it? When the body, mind, sense complexes are in one line, aligned to each other, smoothly and actively, alertly sitting in Nididhyasanam, what else is there other than Prashanti or Shanti? Isn't it? Prasadam Adhigachati, we said in the second chapter, a Jitatma is the one, a Karma Yogi, an Upasana Yogi, the mind being absolutely tranquil, the mind being absolutely available for Nididhyasana. It is a Prashanta, Prashantasya, ones whose mind is Prashanta, Paramatma Samahitaha. He is fully Samahitaha. Samahitaha means he is fully involved in or focused in his Atma Swarupa, in Paramatma. Paramatma Samahita. Of course, it is explained in 2 or 3 different ways, but let us understand here that such a mind is capable of being with the object of one's meditation, what we call as dhyayam. What is the dhyayam in Nididhyasana? Atma Swarupam. Knowing myself to be the Akarta Atma is the dhyayam or the object of my meditation. To understand, see, let us use the term meditation, contemplation, dhyanam, nididhyasanam. They're all paryaya padas, so they all mean the same thing. So I may use any of these words, all of them mean the same. So Paramatma Yasya Samahitaha, he is abiding in the very dhyanam about the dhyayam. He is all the time focused in that dhyaya vastu. And for such a person, naturally, Shita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkha, Tatha, Mana, Apamana, those things don't trouble him during the time of dhyana at all. Because he is a Samahita Chittaha, Paramatma Samahitaha, Prashantaha. By Karma Yoga, Raga Dveshas have been diluted. By Upasana Yoga, Chitta Naischalyam has been attained. And for such a Prashanta person, at that particular time, nothing really matters. Oh, it is so cold outside. Oh, it is so hot here. I'm feeling so uncomfortable. Such things do not at all disturb him at all. Mana apamana yoho. Somebody insulted me that time. That person only comes in my mind during dhyana. How I can give him back? That all such things are not there at all, because the mind is not available to the pairs of opposites. The mind is only available to the Atma, so to the object of Dhyanam, Samahita, Paramatma Samahita. Therefore, it is such a person is what is called as a Shamakarana Uchate, which we saw in the 3rd verse. Arudhasya Shama Karana Uchati. This is the meaning of Shama. And Aruda should be a Jitatma, a Prashanta Manasaha, Prashanta Manasaha, Paramatma Samahitaha, Samahita Chittaha. Such a person is called as a Vashi, he is called as a Shami, and this is what is necessary for a Nididhyasaka to maintain himself, to keep himself in that seat of Nididhyasana. Then in the next verse he says the same, the Jitatma is explained here. Why is Krishna saying all these things? He is explaining the meaning of what is the meaning of Shama. Arudhasya Shama Karanam Uchyate. So what is the meaning of this Shama that is necessary to keep a Nididhyasaka Arudha, maintained in that in nididhyasanam for that consistent period of that particular period of time, to stay in nididhyasana, to have the capacity to stay there wherever he is. What is this? That is what is being explained by Krishna here. That is why this chapter is also called Atma Sanyama Yoga. Many of you might have seen that. It's called Atma Sanyama Yoga because for an Arudha, for the Nididhyasaka, Shama means Atma Sanyama. And this is what, these are all the qualities of a, or the nature of a Atma Sanyami, or a Vashi, or a Shami. So in the next verse, 8th verse, he says, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutastho Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samaloštashma Kanchanaha. Very, very common, verse which all of us might have studied right from our childhood. So he says that for such a person who is Jnana Vijnana Tripta Atma, the one who has made his knowledge by enough of Shravanam absolutely free from doubts, that is by Mananam, and he's in the process of converting this Jnanam into Vijnanam, he's a Tripta Atma. He's a person who's Tripta. Here again, Atma means Tripta with respect to the mind. The mind is Tripta. Kutastaha. See, Kutastaha is another word used for Atma also. But here, the mind of a Dhyana yogi is Kutastha, steadfast. He's steadfast in meditation. What is the meaning of Kutastha? A Kutastha means an anvil. In Smriti, in Smriti, either in blacksmith or, in the goldsmith, you'll find one device, which is there. It is a block of iron. Okay. And on that, the metal, gold or iron, is heated and it is hammered into a particular shape. And what is that block of iron? That iron block does not move. It remains anvil. It is called as the anvil. Just as an anvil remains without shaking, if anvil itself shakes, then no other process is possible. So for changing something, the anvil or the block of iron should be changeless. So it remains changeless. Similarly, the mind of a yogi, the mind of a nididhyasaka remains changeless, kutavat. That's what here he's called as the kutastha vijitendriya. The one who has mastery over his sense organs and mind. The mind is so steadfast, it does not move at all. Yukta iti uchyate. Such a person is called as a yogi whose mind is not in any way disturbed by anything. And what kind of a mind is it? For him, everything is the same. In the sense, sama loshta ashma kanchana. A lump of clay, a piece of rock, or gold. It means the same to such a person. What is the meaning of that? Does he mean that he does not see a lump of clay as clay, a rock as a rock, and gold as gold? No, it does not. He also sees all the three superficially as different. But he knows that ultimately all of them have the same value of anatma. Whatever value is given to the gold as a precious material, as a malleable material, as a material as a metal which does not decay, or a metal which does not lose its shine, we, for vyavahara, we have given it a value equivalent to money. But at the same time, for a yogi who's sitting in nididhyasana, all the objects of the world are one and the same, though superficially they are different. We saw that in the 5th chapter, 18th verse, isn't it? That is what? Brahmane Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Here he's talking about the objects of the Jagat. There different things were taken from animals to human beings. So such a yogi, even is as a nididhyasaka, he is not distracted. What it means is nothing distracts his mind from, abiding in the dhyanam or in meditation. Now, after talking about the inanimate objects in the form of loshta, ashma, kanchana. Loshta means clay, ashma means a rock, kanchana means a precious material. Now, he wants to talk about how this person has the sameness towards different human beings. So the next verse, ninth verse, is talking about different human beings. So let's read this. Suhrin mityardu sa udasinam madhyastha dveshya bandhushu sadhushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. This first line actually is one word. Okay, we should not really break it, though we break it for the sake of chanting. This whole thing, Suhran Mitrar Yudasina Madhyastha Dveshya Bandhu. This is one word actually. So different types of people are talked about here. Where this dhyana yogi is not disturbed by any of these kind of people. Suhrid means a person who is a well-wisher, who does not expect anything back in return. And he does good whether he knows you or not. This person is called as a Suhrit. Then there is a Mitra. Next word, Mitra. Mitra, the one who knows you, has sneha with you, and does good to you, may not expect anything in return also. Mitra, but he knows you. But a Suhrit may not even know you, but may come to your help when you need it. Then there is one word in between Mitra and Udasina called as Ari. Ari. Okay. Suhrin Mitrar Udasina. Mitra Ari Udasina. Now, who is an Ari? An enemy. Now, will a person who has gone to the level of Dhyana Yoga, will he have any enemies? No. He doesn't have any enemies. But others may consider him an enemy. Isn't it? I may not mind meeting anybody, talking to anybody, even if a person has created problems for me earlier, but that person may not like. Okay, so I may not have any enemies, but there may be some people who have this dhyana yogi as an enemy. So he is an Ari. Then Udasina. Udasina means the one who is not bothered. A person who is going somewhere, you are in problem somewhere, he is not bothered what you're. It's okay. Let him, let him do whatever he wants. Why should I bother to help? So such a person is an Udasina. He just minds his own business and doesn't bother to help anybody under any circumstance. Udasina. Then he says Madhyastha. Now there is a person who is a well-wisher of two parties, and the two parties are having some conflict. But this Madhyastha, or an arbitrator, or a person who wants to compromise, has the interest of both the parties in mind. Such a person is called as a Madhyastha. This word is familiar with us, and we know it. Madhyastha. Dveshya. Okay, Dveshya. A person who can be hated. Of course, here again, this yogi does not have any hatred towards anybody, like Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha we saw in the 18th verse of the 5th chapter. But there may be a very, very gross person who is hated by everybody. Okay, he's a Dveshya, a person who is hated by everybody. But then, even with such a person, this yogi is not disturbed by such a person. And Bandhu, ultimately Bandhu. Badhyate iti bandhu. Bandhus are actually the ones who bind, snehena badnati iti. So a bandhu actually is the one who can bind one in every way. Even in spiritual progress, the bandhu can bind. Therefore, Acharya Shankara, when he says Uddhared Atmana Atmanam, okay, Atma eva bandhuhu Atmana, he says the so-called your bandhus, whom you think are yours, may really, in reality, they may not be your bandhus, because they're only binding you. They're only causing bondage to you. But ultimately, the real bandhu is your own body, mind, sense complex, and your own instrument is your ultimate bandhu. Acharya says that in his Bhashyam. So here he says this, yogi, dhyana yogi, has oneness or samadrishti towards all these types of people. There may be many other types of people, but these are the 6 or 7 types that Krishna has actually enumerated, because of the context of the war in which Arjuna is there. These are the types of people probably Arjuna will be seeing or dealing with in the war. Okay, then sadhushu api cha papeshu. A person may be a dharmic person. Sadhu is a dharmic person. Papeshu, a person may be a papi or a adharmic. We don't have a right to say anybody is a papi or a sadhu. Means the one who does not disturb anybody, the one who follows a life of dharma, and the one who is conducive to everybody else is called as a sadhu. Okay, and papeshu, a papi or the one who is basically a adharmic person who tries to disturb everybody with his adharmic actions. For with regard to all these people, samabuddhihi vishishyate. That means in his dhyanam, in the nididhyasanam, none of these people disturb him. None of these people. I mean, we can, we can just check it ourselves as checklist, The moment we sit for meditation, how many people enter our minds and disturb us? It may be a bandhu, it may be a suhrad, it may be a mitra, it may be anybody. But here, he's a samadarshi in the sense, none of these people or the thoughts of any of these people do not disturb the vashi, the shama of the person. Okay, so now, from the 10th verse onwards, Krishna is going to talk about, what is the right place for meditation. That is Nididhyasanam. What is the right posture for Nididhyasanam? What is the right time for Nididhyasanam? And what are the immediate, preparations that one should do before a person starts getting into Nididhyasana. So we'll just, chant this 2 verses together, and Krishna here does not go in a methodical or in a proper manner. He's the ideas are all distributed in various verses, so we have to really put them into an order and see how Krishna is going about in this. He says, yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitah ekakiyata chittatma nirashira parigraha. So this person who is interested or who is already seated in the seat of dhyana, arudaha, naturally he has to be willing to be ekaki. Okay, he says ekaki atachitta. Group meditations are okay, no problem. But ultimately, ekaki, one has to be alone. One has to be sitting in a place which is not frequented by people often. Rahasi sthitaha. What kind of place it should be, that also will be explained later. But the most important thing is I have to learn to be alone by myself in a place which is not disturbed by people coming and going, where there are no distractions. And at the same time, yata chitta atma. The mind should be, mastered. The mind should be concentrated upon, focused upon the dhyaya vastu. And at least at the time of Nididhyasanam, nirashi aparigraha. Already the karma yogi is a nirashi. That means he does not have any sankalpas or desires about karma or karma phala. Aparigraha, that is accumulation of things. So a person who is already a nirashi and aparigraha by karma yoga itself, as a dhyana yogi also, one has to be, at least at the time of dhyanam, not think of acquiring things, not think of hoarding things. Lot of importance is given to aparigraha, that is unnecessary accumulation of objects, thoughts and other things, which do not help a person, which actually disturb a person in the spiritual pursuit. So yogi yunjita satatam. Let this yogi, the dhyana yogi, connect himself to dhyana yoga by the following preparations just before he sits for that sitting nididhyasana. And we'll see all this in the next section. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्थाशाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।